You're having a hard time EQing your guitars? Let me help you. Hi, I'm Stefan from Mix66 and in this video we are going to take a look at my 3 favorite EQ plugins for guitars. I hope by showing you my top 3 plugins and the process how I use them will help you to get better guitar sounds and therefore better productions. So let's open the DAW. Once again, I used a session from MT Cambridge for this tutorial. The link to the session is in the description, so if you want to download this session and play around with it, just give it a go. I already mixed this session and for this tutorial of course we will focus on the guitar. We have a pair of hardband guitars and on the single channel is just FabFilter Saturn with the subtle transformer setting. This is just to alter the tone ever so slightly, just to give a little bit of saturation. For this tutorial we will focus on the ribbon guitar bass. There you can see my top 3 plugins for EQing guitars. The FabFilter Pro Q-3, the Brainworks Console SSL 4000E and the Amek EQ250. This is as the Brainworks console from Plugin Alliance. There is another instance of FabFilter Pro Q-3. I will explain in a second why there is a second instance of this plugin. Let's start with FabFilter Pro Q-3. This is a great plugin with many functionalities. For example, you have an analyzer. You can disable single EQ bands. And you can add as many EQ points as you like. But in my opinion, this can be very dangerous. If you are EQing guitars, normally you zoom in the upper mid-range. And you start to notch out all the annoying frequencies. The big problem there is that you are so zoomed in that you don't get the big picture guitar sound. What I mean by that is the following. If you are focused on one particular frequency range, for distorted guitars it is normally from 1K to let's say 6K more or less, you start notching out annoying frequencies. The problem is you get so focused on these annoying frequencies that you start hearing them everywhere and you want to take out all of them. The result is a lifeless and boring guitar sound. Basically, you suck the whole life out of your guitars by too many frequency cuts. That is why I would encourage you to limit yourself to 4 or 5 bands within FabFilter Pro Q-3. I think that is more than enough to get rid of annoying frequencies, and if you still don't like your guitar tone, you should look into other areas. We will see that later, but now let's see what I have done with Pro Q-3 in this case. First, listen to it without Pro Q-3 and then I will enable it. You can immediately hear how those nasty frequencies in the upper mid-range are taken out. Notice also the low shelf, which gets rid of some excessive low end in the guitar recording. Now I will bypass just this low shelf. Without the low shelf, the whole mix sounds muddy and with it sounds much clearer. Now let's see what I did with these 3.5 EQ cuts. I will disable them and then enable them while I'm playing. To make it even more obvious what I wanted to take out with these 4 moves, I will boost them now. So as you can see, FabFilter Pro Q-3 is my go-to EQ plugin when I need surgical cuts. I have noticed that most of the times I use this plugin for subtractive EQ. I don't want to say that you should use it only for that. Let's go to the third plugin in this case. I will explain you shortly why we first take a look at the third plugin and then later come back to the second. The next plugin is the Amek EQ250. I tend to use this plugin mostly for broad strokes. In this case, I wanted the guitar to sound more bright. And instead of using a shelf in Pro Q-3, I like to use this plugin. It has no analyzer, just knobs, so I think a natural effect to that is that you listen more instead of relying on what your eyes are seeing. Generally speaking, this is my go-to plugin for overall tone shaping. Listen to it without and then with the plugin engaged. It almost seems like the guitar is taking a step forward. It's getting brighter but not harsher. Exactly what I'm looking for with distorted guitars. You have to be really careful if you would like to add high-end to distorted guitars with digital EQs. And in my opinion, this Amek EQ250 is one of the best digital EQs to add high-end to your distorted guitars. And now, number 3 of my favorite EQ plugins for guitars is the Brainworx Console SSL 4000E. For me, this is somewhere in between the FabFilter Pro Q-3 and the Amek EQ250. I use it to shape the tone of the guitar to make it sit properly in the mix. In this particular case, I'm adding some high-end, just a little bit. This EQ is a really colorful EQ, which can get quite nasty if you overdo it. Sometimes that is exactly what you're looking for. But in this case, I'm going for a more subtle high-end lift. Then I'm taking out some of 2.4K and I'm adding about 4 dB of 440 Hz. Once again, have a listen to the mix without and then with this plugin. You can hear when I activate the SSL 4000E plugin that the guitar sits nice in the mix and the whole mix glues together. Now I will play around with the gain settings of each EQ band to make the changes more obvious. Again, when you are trying to make a guitar sound properly in a mix, then I would encourage you to use a plugin without analyzer. Yes, the FabFilter Pro Q-3 is awesome for these little notch moves, but when I try to make a guitar sound great in the mix, then I prefer the SSL console. I have the feeling when I use the SSL plugin with just knobs, no analyzer, I'm faster to make the guitars sit in the mix. I guess it is because I'm not distracted by what my eyes are seeing. So these are my favorite plugins for EQing guitars. It could happen though, as I'm limiting myself to just 4 EQ bands in my first instance of FabFilter Pro Q-3, that later on I'm still hearing some nasty frequencies. And that was also the case in this example. This is why I added a second instance of FabFilter Pro Q-3 as my last plugin in this plugin chain. This is just to take out 2 additional frequencies in the upper mid-range. Let's get rid of them. Now let's have a listen to the whole mix without any EQ plugins on the guitar and then with my top 3 favorite EQ plugins for guitars on. So now that you have seen my 3 favorite plugins for EQing guitars, I hope that you are able to get great guitar sounds. If it is difficult for you to hear the subtle EQ changes, then I would encourage you to try SoundGym. SoundGym is an online platform that will help you train your ears. You can train your ears by making daily workouts with fun games. Click the link in the description to open SoundGym. And if you are a music producer who wants to build a successful long-term career, then you should check out the Mix66 Career Diagnosis. The Mix66 Career Diagnosis is a 4-part questionnaire that helps you identifying your strengths and weaknesses as a music producer. You will get guides and additional resources so you can overcome these roadblocks and build a sustainable career as a music producer. Just hit the link in the description. And as always, subscribe to this channel and see you next time.